everybody, Backyard Bullion here. Welcome to this week's Ponderous Wednesday. If you are new to the channel, this is where we take a thought-provoking and interesting topic and have a good old ponderous discussion about it to get the brain juices flowing and stimulate some interesting conversation down in the comments section. This week we're going to be talking all about record keeping and how to keep track of your stack. I've been inspired to do this video by Silver Slayer, so full credit to him. He did a fantastic video talking about how he uses AppMex. A bit of a coincidence, we've got an AppMex box here with what is arguably my black hole of record keeping when it comes to the Backyard Bullion stack. So today we are just going to be talking about some of the pros and cons of record keeping, some of my experiences of record keeping with silver stacks, and just generally talking about some of the approaches that you might want to think about if you were either not doing any record keeping at all, like this box, or if you are doing lots and lots of record keeping down to the micro transaction. Maybe a couple of things that you haven't thought about could be highlighted here or down in the comment section. So feel free to comment with your own experiences, thoughts and opinions on this interesting subject as we go throughout today's video. We've got a lot of cool shiny things to look at and half sort through, I suppose, as we go throughout today's video. Just my usual disclaimer before we proceed though, these are just my thoughts and opinions. It's not financial advice. I'm not here to tell you what is the right or wrong way to do something or what is right or wrong to do with your money. Only you can decide that, so any decisions you make, having watched today's video, are yours and yours alone. Now, record keeping. So, as I said, this box represents a bit of a black hole in the Backyard Bullion stack, record keeping wise. In theory, everything here can be traced back, and you can go through eBay records and purchase records from various places that these were purchased from, but it would take an awful lot of time, energy and effort. Generally speaking though, I am a stickler for record keeping, certainly when it comes to kind of business related assets, and the Backyard Bullion hand-pulled silver side of things, any items which I kind of buy to sell commercially specifically, they are very much quite highly record kept in a very, very complex Excel spreadsheet. I'm a little bit old school. I don't have like bookkeeping software. I just run it all from Excel, and it's a very complex Excel spreadsheet, but I'm an Excel geek. I like to do that. That's how I run my my sort of business, from the Excel basically. It works for me. Might not work for you, but it works for me. That said, I have got these black holes in the kind of greater silver stack. Now, when I got started with stacking silver right at the very start, I micro recorded everything down to the penny. I had purchased something, and every single item would have an individual line entry onto a big Excel spreadsheet where you'd be able to then look at, you'd be able to say, right, this Trident silver 1 ounce silver bar was bought on X date. It was bought for £17, it was bought from eBay, even break down what the postage was at the time, what the spot price was at the time, and the premium over spot price. There was all of these lines, these line items. It did become quite cumbersome and quite time laborious to continue updating that, especially when things started to take off with YouTube and I was purchasing lots of different individual items. That's not so much of a bad course of action to take if you're just going to buy a tube of Britannias once every month, or a monster box every now and again. Great, you can have just a simple Excel spreadsheet, keep that all up to date, and you can track your price per ounce on those purchases. You'll know very, very quickly what you've paid for something, and then when you come to sell it, you can understand what you've either made or lost on a specific item. However, if your strategy, kind of like mine I suppose, was to just pick up, like for example, a lot of these bars, what are they called, 79th element bars and SM Bullion bars, these were picked up off eBay, and I'd often use kind of eBay bucks and nectar points to purchase these, and I got lazy. I didn't record keep with every single thing as I started to grow the channel and buy more and more of these little things to either feature on YouTube, or just, for example, when I would have purchases which I made off the forum which were a bit spontaneous. The general message here is that it's not the end of the world if you don't record keep. Now, record keeping is of course incredibly important if your sole purpose here is to find out what kind of profit or loss you are making on a certain thing. Love these little 1/4 ounce Andoran, very, very cool indeed. So yeah, record keeping is incredibly important in that sense if you are really, really keen on understanding what your profit and loss were for a certain thing. Of course, for a business, that is critically important, and that is why for everything business-wise I do, I'm incredibly focused on making sure that everything is correct down to the penny as best as I can. One of the ways that I do that is obviously when I'm pouring lots of silver. This can be related to stacking here as well. When I'm pouring lots of silver, of course, I need to, throughout the course of a year or a month or even a week, purchase raw silver to use to melt. And the way that I keep track of the price of basically the silver that I'm selling at the other end is I have an average. So I will have I do have on my Excel spreadsheet a line, or a page in fact, it's a whole sort of tab, where I have all of the different purchases of silver stock, silver raw material that I've purchased, whether that's in shot form or whether it's on the second-hand market or whether it's just coins which I've bought, which I've then in my mind delineated as melting stock. And a good example of that is, I don't think I've got it to hand. Let me just have a quick look. It's not to hand, but I have a big scrap bag. In fact, it is to hand. You can hear me moving in the background. I have a big scrap bag here, and inside the scrap bag you get all of, like, these are just generic rounds which I've purchased, and you know, they were spot price or less or very close to spot price, and there's loads of different rounds in here. You know, we've got some old Eagles, old Britannias, loads of stuff, and they just go in here. And arguably a fair amount of what's on the table here could, and probably will in fact, end up in that bag, and I just would amalgamate that into an average price per ounce. Now, average price per ounce is a very, very valid way of record keeping. It's a lot simpler way of record keeping. So one of the arguments could have been for myself when this started to get a little bit out of hand was simply to add things into an average. And you can quite easily keep track of everything that way. You don't necessarily have to have a line item, you just simply add an extra ounce, or if it's a big piece like this, you add 10.43 ounces to the total stack. And that's a really good way of doing it. But that does have its pitfalls, because you'll notice that in this pile of coins there is a bunch of quite interesting stuff that will have premiums and could potentially grow further as premiums grow. Also, they will potentially have different exit routes in terms of sales when you come to the other end. So you might well sell this one on eBay because it's going to hopefully garner a better premium than it would if you sold it to Hatton Garden Metals, or if you took it into Atkinson's Bullion and they gave you spot price for it. You know, there are arguably different ways that you can sell at the other end, and having just a simple average price per ounce is going to, I think, it's going to basically give you false readings of what your profits potentially are at the other end. Unless you're liquidating everything that you are having in that amalgamated average, you're not going to get a true reflection of what your investment, what that money has made you. And a good example of that is, and I can't remember who the video was, it was one part of the playlist that I was listening to when I was silver pouring, but there was a chap who was talking about how you can't ever really lose money on silver, because if the prices start dropping, you just keep buying. You buy all the way down and you keep your average. So if you've bought 100 ounces at $20 an ounce and you buy 100 ounces at $10 an ounce, your average is $15 an ounce. And when things go back up to $20 an ounce, you make a profit of $5 an ounce. Well, yes, you do, but actually you're still just breaking even on that first bit of investment, and then you're making a bigger profit on the secondary parts of the investment that you've purchased. And it's really important to understand, I think, the difference between just seeing what an aggregated average is and what different constituent parts of your stack are performing and how they're performing, and the returns that you're getting on each individual item. Now, for really, really large stacks of complex different pieces of silver, of course, average pricing is going to be really important, and it's going to probably be the single best way of keeping an idea of what you're spending on your silver. And that's the next kind of point to talk about. Record keeping is critical for understanding what and how much silver you have and are buying, and what your budgets are. And for us, we operate, okay, I'm not record keeping down to the penny for these, but they're all operating within that kind of, that operating budget, so to speak, of silver purchases at that time. I would have a certain amount of money each month that I'd look to put into a precious metal, and then that would work for me. Now, it's not going to work for everybody, of course. For most people, it's really important to know exactly what you're spending every month. For others, it's not so important. And my argument here is, for this lot here, why it's not really as important for me to be holding it, record keep it is because I'm going to be holding it for a very long time. Some of these individual items might well get sold, but the majority of what's here on the table is part of a longer term strategy where it's just about wealth accumulation over time, such that in the future, at a certain point, when things are, I don't know, favourable for silver, if there's a big price increase, that's when we would look to trade up this silver for gold. Now, it's very interesting actually when I come to think about it. When I make this video, and remember guys, this is a completely unscripted video. I haven't really sat down and written a script about exactly what topics I want to talk about. And I've just kind of, thinking in my head here that whilst I'm pretty poor when it comes to sort of record keeping of these individual line items, I have to say I'm very, very conscious and very careful of record keeping for all of the yellow shiny stuff. And those, there's an argument here about that, because when you're stacking gold, when you have so much cash in hand that you want to put into metals and you get to a certain budget point, in my opinion gold is really the only metal that you can invest seriously in with larger sums of cash for a number of reasons, portability, all of that jazz. But record keeping really does become an issue unless you're just buying boxes and boxes and boxes of generic stuff that is exactly the same every time. So for us, the record keeping for the gold is actually a lot easier because there's so many fewer line item entries that need to be done. Also, there's clear record keeping available on various different platforms. One which Silver Slayer was talking about was AppMex. There are loads of different kind of order recording kind of places that you can get on these different websites, and the main dealers that I use, you have all of your order history basically there, accessible very quickly, and you can see at a very quick glance what your prices are. So buying through places like eBay and second-hand market forum and things like that, a lot more difficult to record keep if you're not on top of it right at the start of when you do it. So record keeping generally I think is really important, but I think at the end of the day, if you're not actively record keeping and you're not doing it, here's another example of how you can look to record keep. So this is an interesting one. I didn't pay this for this coin, by the way. And this is kind of what I do for all of our gold stuff as well. I have them all in individual capsules or flips, and I have a piece of paper in there with what was paid for them. Now, I should probably have not kept this in here, but I purchased this one. I seem to remember I purchased this one off somebody off the Silver Forum, and I think I paid spot price or just above spot price for it. It was in part of a batch of items. The person put it up really, really low price, and I jumped on it, I buzzed it, and I got a whole bunch of, I think it was like 8 or 9 ounces at sort of just over spot price. And when it came, it had this in this kind of flip of what this chap had paid for it. So you can see there that that is an automatic loss for him, but it's a win-win for the person who buys it at sort of lower prices at spot price. That's a way that you can record keep though, but of course if you've got loads and loads of different silver, if you've got hundreds of Britannias, then it's not necessarily going to be practical to have them all in individual flips and capsules with everything handwritten on them. So, but with gold, it's a lot more flexible and easy. So that's kind of, that's my ramblings on record keeping. I think it's really important. I think if you are not doing any record keeping right now, you need to have quite clear understandings of why you're not doing the record keeping. If you're just stacking for 50 years' time and it doesn't really matter to you, that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. And there's a lot of people who will do that. Or if you're stacking to give to future generations, there's an argument there to be had that you don't really need to record keep. But there's also an argument to be had that you really do need to record keep, because if somebody comes and inherits all of your silver, they won't necessarily know what each thing is worth, and they might just say, oh, you know what, this Chiwu Cheongwang is just silver spot, I'll sell it for silver spot. But in fact they could get double spot if they sold it on the second-hand market. So there's a whole host of different reasons for and against record keeping. What would be really interesting though is to find out what you guys think about record keeping generally, and any techniques that you guys use for record keeping. For myself, it's primarily done through Excel. I would imagine that's going to be the majority of you guys' tools out there for your own stacks. I know there are mobile apps out there that you can use. I don't use any of them myself. I'd much rather, in terms of security and things, I'd always much rather keep my own stack on a kind of, private computer stored, not on the cloud, that kind of thing, manually backed up. It's never, if you have a big file, like all my business documents, it's all very much kept off the internet in terms of cloud storage and backups and all of that. It's really important to do. That's a different topic altogether about electronic security. But generally speaking, I'd love to know what your record keeping tips and hints would be, or if, like me, you've got a box somewhere which you're dreading going through because you don't know what's in it. I'd love to know. It's like my Monica closet from Friends, you know, it's just my messy box, and I've got another one of these upstairs as well, which is it's just my sort of dirty little secret, really. I don't have that greater record keeping on every single item within my stack. But generally speaking, for the business, we are, you know, you have to be for business. And if you are going to be getting into this as a kind of trader, my recommendation is very much keep those records tight as they can be, because if you ever get audited, you are going to be in trouble if they're not. That is my advice to you. Not that I've been audited, I'm not speaking from experience there, but I know people who have been audited, and it's not fun, so to speak. So please do comment down below with your thoughts on today's topic, and if you enjoyed today's ramblings about the subject, please do hit the thumbs up button and share it around on your social media. That would be very helpful for everything that we do here on our channel. If you want to see future videos from us, then please make sure you hit the subscribe button. And if you want to support the channel, you can go through to my website and check out all of the hand-poured silver that we produce, and any support you guys can give would be greatly appreciated. Otherwise, have a fantastic week, and thank you all for watching. Please make sure that you like, share, comment and subscribe for more.